Biodiversity is very part of the Namibian landscape. And we are the first country to have in the constitution the environmental protection. It was something our politicians identified as a priority in the country. There was a lot of investment from government, from the civil society to bring back wildlife to the landscape. We have over 20,000 elephants now, but it was way less than that in 1994. That is also the same with rhinos. Namibia is a country that is situated in the southwest of Africa. It's a very semi-desert country, it's semi-arid. We have a population of around 2.4 million people. It's a huge country, but very few people.
We find animals inside national parks, but also outside national parks, despite of the dry conditions. Most of the animals are desert adapted. They are not so big in numbers, but there is big diversity, from leopard to small animals like game and different antelopes. So some people have to live with wildlife, and sometimes we don't realize how much effort it is to live with wildlife. For example, in Europe we hardly manage to live with bears and wolves, and here people are still living with mega fauna like rhinos, elephants, lions.
It creates a lot of conflicts between people and wildlife. Lions and predators don't just eat wildlife, they also start eating people's livestock, and sometimes we had people also being killed. And it's not just predators, we also have elephants that are destroying people's crops.
The elephants are here. And the elephants are naughty when they want to be naughty. But if they are in peace, just drinking and moving. But sometimes when the elephants are coming at sunset, you must not go to bed. You must stay, because when the village is quiet, they are coming in, damage everything they want, and we chase them. Around the gardens, there are some cans. We are making some noise and we are making fires, and they are running away. They run away, and from that time till now, there was no one hurt by a lion, by an elephant in this village. Lucky for us.
On ne peut pas demander à des villageois de préserver des éléphants qui vont détruire leur point d'eau, qui vont aller arracher le peu de petites cultures qu'ils peuvent faire dans un potager. On ne peut pas leur demander de protéger tout ça si derrière ils n'ont aucun intérêt.
There is also a big gap between rich and poor in our country, and the people that are poor are the ones that are suffering the most. So obviously, if they don't get their needs addressed, they will poach. Rhino and elephant poaching is one of the biggest challenges we have. Our strategy with poaching has always been that people should be involved. You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the systems in the world, but if you don't have people to understand that this resource belongs to them and that this resource are a valuable resource, then I cannot see how you can reduce poaching. So you need to make sure that people benefit from wildlife. There is no reason for people to look after something if they don't benefit from it.
So we must provide the people with all the tools and all the help and all the support that we can to help them live with wildlife. And in Namibia we have a very interesting system called the community-based natural resources management, where people can get together and decide how they can deal and manage their own wildlife without going through the ministry. The Ministry of Environment is okay with that as long as they manage the population sustainably.
The Conservancies is a body that is being set up in the communities to look after the wildlife. We have around 44% of our country under these conservation systems. It gives communities the rights to manage their resources. That is what we call a devolved right. So they manage, the benefits go to them, and so they have a feeling of ownership over those resources. The conservancies employ people themselves. Most of them are game guards. We have something like 550 game guards that are employed by the conservancies, not by government, by the community themselves, and they are doing conservation work. We, together with our government, also created an insurance policy, which means that if livestock is being killed, they will then offset or pay money to the person who lost that livestock. If people seeing the benefits coming from wildlife, they understand and they are more tolerant towards wildlife. The income is used for projects rather than individual ownership. The communities have what we call a benefit distribution plan. They every year have to sit with their own communities and decide what is the priority in our area to give benefits. They have a fund that pay for people's livestock if it's been killed by wildlife. They pay for schoolwear. They pay for anything that has to do with the school that government is not paying for. They have soup kitchens for the older people. They cover funeral costs of people. NACSO is an umbrella organization. We are 9 non-governmental organizations. We support around 82 conservancies, and we work all over Namibia. We are partners with government, and especially the Ministry of Environment and Tourism. We make sure that the community's rights are being respected and that they do derive benefits from conservation. We also work on governance issues. This is making sure that communities have institutions in place and have skills to govern those resources. Conservation and tourism are very closely linked, and if you actually manage it very well, it actually works out very, very good.
I run a non-profit Namibian organization called TOSCO, that is standing for Tourism Supporting Conservation, and it is the idea that tourism should contribute more to conservation in Namibia. We have 3 levels of conservation programs, so we support people living with wildlife so they can get an income, a direct income from tourists who are coming to observe wildlife. We also support scientists, because we believe that it is only with a good research that we will know more about the animals, because the more you know about something, the less you are afraid of it and the easier you can manage it. So we sponsor scientists to study these animals and give a conservation recommendation to the government. And the third level of programs is public awareness. We believe that tourists are not educated enough into conservation. The ecological footprint of man is worse and worse. We have to realize that tourism can be an opportunity and not only a threat, and that it can be done in a very ethical way and on a sustainable way. So we do give to guides and to tourists some responsible travel guidelines. For the social aspect, we must respect the local people, we must recognize that they are the ones living here, they are the ones living with wildlife, and we don't have anything to teach them. There is many things that we think sometimes is good with our European mindset, where actually the impacts are quite negative. We are talking about giving sweets or pen or money to children. This just led them to beg more and to ask more, to not go to school, and that also breaks the social hierarchy in the area, where they will have more material and more money sometimes than the elders who are working, and they will skip school to get more, and they will just beg and waiting for the tourists, and that's not a very healthy relationship. So we encourage to not hand out anything to children. On the economical point of view, we have to support local business, we have to support community-based enterprise so that they have a direct income from tourism that will encourage them to have more wildlife. And on the environmental point of view, we must not drive off-road, we must not leave any rubbish. You leave nothing else, you take picture, and you leave the area as it is so that the next people will have the same chance than you to observe a pristine area. And we must be careful to not stress wildlife, to always respect wildlife so that they don't suffer from tourism and they can stay in the area and everybody can enjoy them. You can go also to kind of sanctuaries where they keep animals in captivity to show tourists very close the animal or even interact with the animal. But we have to think that what we buy is what we promote. And I think the most important for the nature are the wild places where animals roam freely, because that is where they will have a role to play towards the ecosystem. And we must not forget that animals in captivity have no role to play at all in the ecosystem. It doesn't show the right example, and that's not what we want to promote in Namibia. Sometimes as humans, we want to have this special relationship with an animal, but the best way to respect an animal is to give it space and give it freedom. It's not to put it in a cage. They are not made for this. The starting point of the whole story was one day when I was driving with guests, looking for these elephants, spending the whole day in the area, not finding them, being a bit frustrated. And when I go out of the valley, the whole herd of elephants, maybe 23 elephants, were there in the village. The night was falling, and I was so happy to find these elephants. My guests were very happy to find the elephants, so it was such a good news for us. So we stopped the car and we watched them drinking from the village borehole. Everybody was smiling, I was smiling. And then I turned around and I see 5 meters from the car, the small house of the people living there, and they were not smiling at all. For them it was such a bad news, because they live in a village where there is no electricity. There is 23 elephants in between houses that are not so strong. The kids are running around and it's dangerous for them. And I thought to myself, how can the same thing can be such good news for us and such a bad news for them? So I thought there was a problem. And the only way to fix that problem will be for the tourism industry to contribute to support these people to live with the elephants. And maybe we can turn the threat into an opportunity. So we are now developing a project to build a craft and information center for the local community for that the tourists can stop there, take a local guide, buy some craft, learn about the area and the people living here, and bring direct benefits to the people who live with the elephant.
Le projet qui a été mis en place par TOSCO a pour but de créer un centre d'information dans le village de Derit, un centre d'information qui aurait, on va dire, différents buts. Le premier, ce serait aussi de faire que ce soit un lieu de rencontre à l'avenir et que les gens qui passent, bien sûr, puissent profiter de ces paysages grandioses, de cette vie sauvage qui est partout dans le Damaraland, mais qui puissent aussi rencontrer les habitants parce qu'ils font partie des richesses de la région. Le deuxième but de ce centre d'information, c'est de faire vraiment en sorte que les gens, que les locaux puissent profiter véritablement du tourisme. Parce que clairement, et d'ailleurs c'est l'exemple que nous-mêmes on a en France ou en Europe, on ne va jamais préserver la vie sauvage s'il n'y a pas un intérêt un petit peu derrière. C'est vraiment un village qui est dans une zone où on a beaucoup de vie sauvage et aussi beaucoup de vie touristique. On a une population d'éléphants qu'on appelle les éléphants adaptés au désert, qui survivent dans des conditions vraiment arides. Ils vivent principalement dans les lits de rivières asséchés qui sont autour de ce village. Alors la population là-bas, elle fait partie d'une ethnie qu'on appelle les Rimvasmakers. Donc ils arrivent d'Afrique du Sud, ils ont été déportés pendant l'apartheid. Aujourd'hui, c'est principalement des fermiers. Certains travaillent aussi dans les lodges qui sont installés autour du village de Derit, mais la plupart sont simplement des fermiers qui survivent grâce à l'élevage de chèvres et de vaches.
I am Rebecca. I was born in South Africa on the 2nd of April, 51. And I grew up there. And after I gave birth to my firstborn, and she was 2 years old, the government of the apartheid time don't want us there anymore. And he removed us in 73, and he moved us out to the farms, all the farms in this area. And after that, Mandela was released and peace come. And Mandela said, okay, those who lost their land, they can come back if they want. It's not a force. It's like the first time, it's if they want. We decided to stay here. Most of our youngsters was already married to the citizens. Some of us was working already for the government, and that's how we are living here since then. And now we are making some small gardens at home, and the elephants. We like the elephant because it's because of the elephants that we have guests every time. Yeah. So now, as long as we are here, we are friends now. We will be there, and if people are passing, they stop there and ask for information. Where are the elephants? When did you saw the elephants? And things like that. If they gave maybe small contributions, we will put it together, and if there is something that we want to do, then we will buy some food, pay for the transport of our people.
C'est financé grâce à justement aux opérateurs touristiques. Ils payent un droit de passage à la Conservancy. Mais au lieu de le payer à Tora, qui est la Conservancy locale, ils le payent directement à TOSCO.
It's a very good project. Oh, we are so happy with that project. It's very good. It's a good thing that we have that office. I just want to say thank you for TOSCO, who is already helping us.
But there is some area in the world where there is no photographic tourism because it's too remote, because the place sometimes is not as beautiful as the tourists expect it to be, or because of the political situation. And there is two ways to create value for wildlife: photographic tourism and also hunting tourism. It's a very hot topic. It's very important in Namibia. As a foreigner, when I arrived in Namibia, I could not understand how hunting will protect an animal. How do you save animals by killing them? It was something very contradictory for me. But by the experience and by looking over, and I actually found out that hunting also gives value to the animals. An animal that can be hunted has a value, a financial value, so you want to look after it. Or if you hunt it, you want to make sure there will be others to hunt afterwards, so that you can have an income from the hunting. And by protecting the animals, you leave the ecosystem as it is, because you don't need to change the nature. Like, for example, when you have cattle, you will have to take all of the trees out, you need only grass, and you will kill all of the wildlife. But if you do hunting, you will keep the ecosystem as it is now, and this is also a home for many other species, and it's a value for the wild animals, so you are encouraged to protect that value.
You need a legal environment for people to participate. That is the most important. And then you need to raise awareness. People need to understand why is it important for the country. It's a very good way to protect the environment and wildlife and to conserve. So everybody is involved, and then we meet together, we count how many animals is in one area, then we put it up to a national level, then we know exactly how many animals that we have in the rural areas. So based on that, we then set up what we call quotas.
So they have to make a game count. For example, they will count 500 springboks in an area. They'll give this number to the ministry. They will find out that maybe 400 are necessary to have a viable population. So they will have a 50 individuals quota that they can eat, that they can sell for trophy hunting, or that they can use for the skin. So it will encourage them that the more animals they have, the more quotas they have, so the more income they will get. And first of all, you have to select the right animal to be hunted. Most of the time, it must be a male that cannot reproduce anymore, so that you don't interact in a negative way with their reproduction system.
When we started the program in 1994, the rhinos nearly became extinct, especially the black rhinos. We have seen them coming back. We also had very few cheetahs. Cheetahs and leopards were people's biggest enemies, especially on commercial farms. Attitudes now have changed. We have the biggest population of cheetahs in the world.
In Namibia, it's the only country in the world where you have a growing population of rhino and lions, both endangered species, outside of national parks. And this is really a proof of success, if hunting is well done, that it can benefit everybody.
en Namibie, on a des parcs nationaux comme le parc national des Tosha, où on a vraiment consacré toute une zone, plus de 20 000 km² aux animaux. C'est magnifique, mais c'est pas la vraie vie puisqu'on a enlevé tous les humains qui vivaient, du moins une très grande partie. Et on a ces zones, comme la région Kunene, où là on va bien sûr avoir aussi une vie sauvage, mais on a des hommes qui vivent aussi. C'est, on va dire, la vraie vie en fait. Donc je pense que oui, c'est bien quand on guide nos visiteurs, de leur faire comprendre que finalement cette vie sauvage, il faut la préserver, et surtout il faut la préserver dans son écrin naturel. D'autant que c'est important de leur expliquer les comportements. Quand on les voit, on ne va pas juste s'arrêter prendre une photo, on va leur dire il y a des comportements migratoires. Pour trouver de l'eau, pour trouver leur alimentation, ils ont besoin de beaucoup se déplacer.
The most important thing for us is to have open landscapes for wildlife to move, because that's how we used to know Africa. It was open, no fences, until the colonial period, and wildlife could move and people could live with wildlife.
In Namibia we are very lucky because on these conservancies and the communal land, man is part of nature. And the real nature is the one that does not exclude man. We need to understand that man is part of the ecosystem. Also in Europe, we tend to think that nature is a leisure. We either go out of our town or of our home to see nature somewhere else. It can be a foreign country like Namibia, it can be a zoo, it can be a park, but we tend to forget that first of all we are part of nature, and nature starts at our place. We organized every piece of land, especially to provide an income for living, but we hardly left some wild places for the animals. And now that we lost it, we realize how much important it is. So we must give back land to nature so that it can rebuild itself. That means forest, that means maybe also less meat, because by producing cattle meat we are destroying the environment and we use too many space and water. Conservancy also has a chance in other countries. It's not only a question of having a small population. For example, in Namibia we also have an area called the Zambezi. There is a lot of people and they are still having conservancy. It's just the way that we must make an effort to live with wildlife, and we must find new ways to have a benefit from wildlife.
Overall in Namibia, I think there's a lot of awareness even in towns, that people are very much aware about their environment, they are aware about wildlife and how they need to protect it. Even the youth are very concerned about environmental and conservation issues. Yes, there's still a long way to go, but we are trying to protect it all. We need to keep it for our children, we need to keep it not for us, we also need to keep it for the world.
The environment is the business of everybody. Not only the people working in the tourism industry, or not only the ministry or the scientists. It is really something that everybody should work on and have a responsibility. And if we help each other, we make sure that we'll look after the environment in a more responsible way than we've been doing for the last dozens of years.
Now we had rains, the numbers will go up again. We are very happy that it works, and we hope that it will continue.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.